Today, gunmen attack synagogues and churches in Russia's Dagestan. Iranians head to the polls this week to elect a new president. And the new smuggling routes to the US that start with charter flights. It's Monday, June 24th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, every weekday. I'm Carmel Crimmins in Dublin. A shootout at an Orthodox church in the southern Russian region of Dagestan. Gunmen targeted synagogues and churches in simultaneous attacks on the capital Machakala and another city on Sunday. Multiple police officers and a priest were killed. There was no immediate claim of responsibility. Russian media said 5 of the gunmen had been killed. The attacks are the latest outburst of violence inside Russia as the country fights its war against neighbouring Ukraine. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova vowing that Russia will seek an international response to an attack on Crimea. Moscow says the US is responsible for a deadly Ukrainian attack on the Russian-annexed peninsula in which at least 4 people were killed and more than 100 injured. The Russian Defense Ministry says Ukraine hit Crimea with US-supplied missiles. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that the phase of intense fighting against Hamas in the Gaza Strip is coming to an end, but that the war would not end until the group no longer controls the Palestinian enclave. Netanyahu says the move will enable Israel to deploy more forces along the northern border with Lebanon, where fighting with Hezbollah has meant residents have been evacuated. A fire at a lithium battery manufacturing plant in South Korea has killed multiple people. The blaze began after a series of battery cells exploded inside a warehouse. Over on markets, there's more bad news for Boeing. Prosecutors are recommending the Justice Department criminally charge the plane maker after finding it violated a settlement related to 2 fatal crashes. Reuters is reporting that the Justice Department must decide by July 7th whether to prosecute. The company and the DOJ declined to comment. And, after a break last week, my podcast, Reuters Econ World, is out on Wednesday. This week, we're looking at productivity and why Europe is desperate to crack it. You can find Econ World on Reuters.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Record border crossings are a major issue ahead of the November US election. Reuters and Columbia Journalism Investigations have traced 2 smuggling routes that bring Indians and Africans to the US via Central America. These routes represent a new phase of illegal immigration, according to interviews with 5 US officials. Immigration editor Micah Rosenberg oversaw the reporting. Micah, how does this all work?
President Biden has been struggling with the record number of migrants crossing at the U.S.-Mexico border. And part of the complication that his administration has faced is an increasing number of migrants who are coming from farther and farther away, including from outside of the Western Hemisphere. And so since these people are traveling huge distances to get here, we actually found that they're paying exorbitant prices to take charter and sometimes commercial flights, mostly landing in Central America, and then they travel over land through Mexico and then up to the U.S.-Mexico border, where they try and cross illegally or turn themselves into border agents and ask for asylum. So many migrants end up in huge amounts of debt to afford these journeys, and migrant smugglers are obviously profiting hugely from this, but so are legitimate airline companies.
You traced the routes some of these migrants have taken. Tell us about that.
And so we traced 2 typical routes, one that's mainly used by Indians and the other by West Africans. And so for the Indians, we found a pathway of charter airlines. We're carrying hundreds of Indian passengers from the United Arab Emirates into destinations in Central America, mainly in Nicaragua. And the Indian police told us that these journeys can cost between $60,000 and close to $100,000 per person. So we spoke to one Indian man who tried to migrate to the United States. He failed 5 times, actually, but the smuggler charged him $72,000, and a sixth of it was due upfront, and then the balance would be owed when he arrived to the United States and was supposed to start working to pay off his debt. For the West Africans, it's a little bit different. Many are coming from Senegal and Mauritania, and we found they usually are paying for sort of multi-stop flights on many commercial airlines, also usually stopping in Nicaragua, and then they go overland with specialized smugglers. And for this total package, it can cost upwards of $10,000. So, while not everyone is coming this specific way, we found that a lot of people are, which means that a lot of money is being made.
You can read the full story and learn more about how the Biden administration and other Central American governments are dealing with this on the Reuters app. Iranians head to the polls this Friday following the death of President Ibrahim Raisi in a helicopter crash last month. The 63-year-old hardliner was widely seen as a possible successor to the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Watching the presidential debate in Tehran, Iranians like Yasamin Narjesian listed the economy among their top issues. Our Middle East editor, Ed Blair, has more.
Well, scores of people put themselves forward to run for the presidency, but only 6 of them made it through, approved by the Guardian Council, which is a council which vets candidates for loyalty to the system, assesses them whether they are appropriate for the job. There's one low-key politician who is considered a moderate, but most of the 6 who have been chosen are hardliners. They're loyal to the supreme leader.
Do we know who's favoured to win?
There are no reliable polls in Iran that are going to tell us who's going to win. I suppose the fact that 5 of the 6 are hardliners and only one is a low-key moderate politician tells you the direction of travel.
What's voting like in Iran?
The key factor for the establishment in Iran in elections is securing a high turnout. That's really the test for them of support for the system. And we've seen in elections gone by the turnout drop fairly sharply.
What difference will this election make for Iranians?
The president is not the top official in the country. He is not the US president. The final word in all matters of state lies with the supreme leader. That means there won't be any major shift in policy in major matters of state, regardless of who is president. The president, however, is involved with the day-to-day running of state. He is involved in the economy, and that really matters to the population. The economy is on the ropes. It faces a range of US sanctions, isolation, and we're seeing a nation of people who are feeling under huge pressure from inflation and rising cost of living.
Turning to another election, this time in the UK, where voters in the seaside town of Brighton will get the chance to elect what some are calling the first AI candidate in parliamentary polls on July 4th.
And the idea is that we're 24/7 available. You can talk to the website, you can shape policies, you can listen to our policies. What do you think of the idea?
Sounds very interesting.
59-year-old Steve Endicott is using AI to present voters with an electronic version of himself. AI Steve.
Having politicians controlled and influence and direct contact with all their voters would mean we have better policies and policies for the people by the people.
The avatar engages real time with locals on topics of interest, then puts forward policy ideas before asking them for their suggestions. Any policies that come out of these chats are put forward to human validators for vetting. Endicott says he would then vote for them in Parliament in line with whatever his constituents decide. Local charity worker Iona Johnston was open to the idea.
We're using AI in so many, at work, social interactions. Why don't we put it in politics? But how would we do it? I think, shouldn't be closed off to the idea.
But not everyone has been impressed. Endicott has even received death threats.
Interestingly enough, somebody even threatened to kill AI Steve. We just said, if you're big enough, see if you can find the plug. And they went, what?
That's it for Monday. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show. To make sure you never miss an episode, download the Reuters app or subscribe on your favourite podcast player.